Well, joining me now is Andrew Allison, Head of Campaigns at PopCon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, David. How are you?
Yeah, really good to talk to you. It's always good to talk to you, actually. Where do you stand on this? I think Robert Jenrick is right, actually. The whole point about this, he is trying to differentiate between actually having freedom of speech in this country, which I think is in short supply, and then the offence of burning a religious text which is deemed to be sacred by some groups. But he's trying to make that distinction and trying to decide what is right, what many of us object to, and what is actually against the law.
Correct. I think he's got this absolutely right. I mean, for the record, I'm against book burning in general. I don't care what it is. I think it's a futile exercise. J.K. Rowling responded a few months ago when some of her former fans said they were going to burn the Harry Potter books. She said, well, go ahead, it's your property. I've still got paid for it, which I thought was a really good response. So no, I mean, this is a de facto blasphemy law through the back door. Of course, it's grossly offensive, but burning a copy of the Bible would also be grossly offensive.
To some.
For some, yes. But we can't arbiter good taste. Or we can't say, well, I'm offended by that, so therefore someone should go to prison as a result of that. Just because we're offended. Otherwise, we wouldn't say anything, would we?
So it is a very, very clever distinction, this. He said it could be a public order offence to burn a Torah scroll at the doors of a synagogue or a Koran outside a mosque. I totally get that. But he goes on to say this is entirely different to burning a text as a protest in a setting that isn't a religious setting.
Yes, I think it's also illegal, and perhaps some viewers and listeners could correct me if I'm wrong, but I actually think it's illegal to burn anything on a public street anywhere, but that's through environmental and considerations. That goes back to 1990. Well, it is, because if you stand on the steps of a synagogue and burn a sacred book...
Yeah, it's offensive.
Then you expect a response. If someone came up and thumped you, then don't be surprised. And exactly the same if you started burning a Bible on the steps of a church or a cathedral. And I imagine it's exactly the same for Muslims on the steps of a mosque. So yes, it is important to have that context. But as a general rule, we cannot be charging people and potentially imprisoning people for burning sacred texts.
And who has got this right and who has got this wrong? So the police, the CPS, seem very keen to jump onto people who are deemed to be committing acts which are deemed to be offensive by some groups without actually applying common sense.
Yes. Perhaps we need something that started in America just recently, where a little bit of common sense has come in, where they're getting rid of the DEI agenda, because I'm sure this is where it is all coming through. And of course, we do have activist judges in this country as well, who make up the law as they go along. And it seems the politicians are not really making the laws very much. They're just being interpreted.
Do you think there's a real sense in this country that actually we are increasingly unable to speak our minds, to speak freely, and that is the cornerstone of our democracy?
Well, precisely. You cannot be described as a free country if you do not have free speech. It's a cornerstone of a free society. And I remember a survey, David, I think it was about 5 years ago, where people said that they did not feel as free to speak their minds then as they did 5 years prior to that, so around about 2015. And I would argue that has actually got worse now. People are self-censoring, and they should not have to self-censor.
I would agree. And actually, I think it's very healthy to be able to be in a situation where you espouse your views, where you talk to your friends and say, look, I don't agree with X, Y and Z. And if you don't allow that freedom of speech, you push it underground.
Well, of course you do. Although you will remember that the SNP were or are wanting to introduce laws that will say that what you say around your dinner table at home, in your own home, your own dinner table, you could be reported to the police for expressing views that the SNP and the Scottish Government don't think are appropriate.
Where do you stand on Angela Rayner sitting down and trying to construct some legal definition of Islamophobia?
It's nonsense. I mean, why? For starters, David, why just Islamophobia? I mean, yes, we have definitions of anti-Semitism, But we don't seem to have any definitions of anti-Hinduism or anti-Christianity, but it all seems to boil down to Islamophobia. And it strikes me that if you make the mildest criticism of Islam, you're accused of Islamophobia. And the reason you're accused of Islamophobia is because the people who are trying to accuse you of that are trying to stifle free speech. They're trying to shut you down. I mean, the whole thing to do with the rape gangs that we've just been finding out about in more graphic detail than I think we wanted to. It's highlighted that these cases were not taken seriously, or they were brushed under the carpet because of community relations, community cohesion. Well, where's that got us? By trying to sweep this under the carpet, it's created an even bigger disaster.
You mentioned watching across the pond and Dodge and the arrival of Elon Musk to do that, but also J.D. Vance made that speech, quite an inflammatory speech. I thought it was pretty spot on, actually, when he said the threat from within to free speech poses a greater danger to Europe than Russia. And I think he was right in that. Jonathan Reynolds, who is the business secretary, pushed back. This was yesterday on various television programmes, saying J.D. Vance has got it wrong.
I don't think it's a greater threat than an invasion of Russia if you happen to live in Eastern European countries.
I think he was using it as a parallel.
Well, he probably was. I just wouldn't have used it like that. Although I will say to J.D. Vance, if he ever sees a clip of this, please also acknowledge that this woke virus started in the United States. It came from your country. Now, you may be doing everything that you possibly can to stop this, but please acknowledge that this came from America and it started to infect the world.
Can I ask you, if I may, in terms of politics, just about the rise of Reform UK? And the fact is there's this survey out today showing that Reform is more trusted than the Conservative Party. Kemi Badenoch just doesn't seem to be cutting the mustard.
Give her a chance. I mean...
We've given her a chance.
Hold on, David. Let's go back to 1975, because we've just been remembering...
Only yesterday.
50th anniversary of becoming leader of the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
Week after week after week, Jim Callaghan beat her in Prime Minister's questions. He knocked her around the park. It took her a long time to get settled in as leader of the opposition. Now, I agree that what Margaret Thatcher did not have was Reform, or a party like Reform on the right, breathing down her neck.
What, like a truly Conservative Party?
Well, it could well be argued like that, but I mean, I do believe that Kemi Badenoch is a true Conservative. I'm a true Conservative.
I don't doubt it.
Conservative. But it's just, I think she needs to be given time. But she is going to have to start improving pretty soon during Prime Minister's questions. But she's also going to have to start coming out with more Conservative positions. We don't need detailed...
Well, I don't think you have any, do you? Don't you have one policy currently?
Well, we don't need policies at the moment, David. We just need positions, detailed policies.
OK, but you have one position, don't you?
Well, there should be more than one position.
But I think there's only one.
And hopefully she's coming out with more than one position.
How long do we wait for the second one?
I know what she believes in. And I know she's a true Conservative. I know what her principles are. I know what her instincts are. She just needs to come out.
Isn't there a worry, though, for the Conservative Party that actually what you're going to do is, if you stay in this state of limbo, you are going to lose more and more voters to parties like Reform UK, and therefore the actual very existence of the Conservative Party is under threat?
That is a possibility, yes. I mean, we got a shellacking at the last general election, and in my view, rightly so. For the last 14 years, the Conservatives have seen the country move in a leftwards direction. The Blair consensus was not got rid of. Indeed, it was extended by the Cameron government. So yes, there are a lot of reasons there for voters to be angry, and it doesn't surprise me that the voters are now saying that they trust Reform over the Conservative Party. But I would also caution that voters change their minds.
Sure.
And we are, I would think, just over 4 years away in the spring of 2029 from a general election. So a lot can happen then. So we've got to give Kemi time to get her feet under the table. We need more Conservative positions. So a clear direction of travel for the Conservative Party, and then we'll see where it takes us.
She's the wrong leader, isn't she?
I don't think she is the wrong leader. I don't think like that. She's got one of the most difficult jobs in politics, if not the most difficult job in politics.
Really? She's pushing at an open door. Keir Starmer, deeply unpopular. Every single policy he comes out with, absolutely everyone seems to hate. She's pushing at an open door.
Well, he's got the levers of government to, I suppose, to change things. But I agree. I mean, Starmer's dreadful. I mean, I always thought this Labour government would be bad, but perhaps not quite as bad as it actually is. But, you know, as I said just a couple of minutes ago, you know, Margaret Thatcher did not have another party from the right breathing down her neck. And she had the time to get ready and prepare for government. But indeed, she did prepare for government and was Prime Minister for 10.5 years. So it can end well.
Ever the optimist. Really good to talk to you. Thanks ever so much, Andrew. Andrew Allison, the head of campaigns at PopCon.
I hope that you enjoyed that. And if you did, please like and subscribe either on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from. And please check out Popular Conservatism. Our website is popularconservatism.com. And please make sure that you sign up to receive our weekly newsletter.